The Ecumenical Patriarchate reminded us this year that we have the 1,400 years anniversary since the salutations of the Theotokos were written and established in the church practice. 1,400 years. You know, when we study history, there are two ways of understanding history. The one way is that history and human history in general is just a straight line that goes on and on and on and on and on. And the other understanding of history is that it's a circle. It's a circle, and history circles back, sometimes as a tragedy, sometimes as a comedy. 1,400 years back. And when we talk about history, we need to know when, where, who, how, and details like that, essential to the narrative. So, history goes on. So we're going from progress to progress and evolution to evolution. But as of 1,400 years ago, the West was in war with Iran, with Persia, with the Persian Empire. Back then it was not Iran, it was the Sassanid Empire. So what happened is that the Byzantine Empire, or better say the Eastern Roman Empire, was going through a lot of turmoil at that point, and it wasn't, the continuation of the empire was not certain at all. So when emperor became a young officer named Heraclius, there were not many hopes that this empire will keep going. So the Sassanid Empire, that is the Persians, they thought that this is the time to act, and they started provocative actions. I mean, history doesn't repeat, right? Or does it? Yeah. So they started provocative actions to get the Byzantines into war, and eventually they started invading and occupying lands. The thing that triggered the war was when they entered Jerusalem and they took as war spoil for their pride the Holy Cross, the Cross of Christ. This is when Christians said that now we need to respond. And they responded. Heraclius gathered an army that was disproportionately a lot smaller than the Persian, and he took the bold decision to attack to the Sassanid Empire at the very heart of the empire. The Persians, on the other hand, they had made an alliance with a nation called Avari, and that was north of Constantinople. That nation seemed to disappear, or rather, because nations don't disappear, it seemed that it merged with Slavic nations later. But those Avari, they gathered an army of 30,000 people and they went to hit Constantinople while the imperial army was too far away to return back on time. So the city of Constantinople had to close the gates and rely on the garrison of the city to defend. Eventually, it was against the numbers and against all odds, Constantinople did withstand the siege. And that army of the Avars it dismissed, I mean, it has to do something with the bravery of the Byzantines, something with the politics of Byzantines, something with the spies of Byzantines, but at the same time, with the help of the Theotokos. Every day during the siege of Constantinople, the patriarch would take the icon of Panagia Odigitria, the directress, and walk and process around the walls of the city. So eventually, when they won, they rendered the win to Panagia, to the Virgin Mary. And they all went to the imperial chapel in Blacherne, and they offered this salutation, the Akathist hymn, and out of respect, they didn't sit down for a minute. This is why I called Akathist, the one that's standing, they're not seated. At the same time, the emperor did great in the east. He went and he literally destroyed that empire. He took the cross back. That was the time that it was decided that the cross should not remain one piece, but cut into smaller pieces, that in the event that it would be stolen again, not to lose the entire cross of Christ. It was the time that it was composed, the Apolitikion that we hear when we have the feast of elevation of the cross. Νίκας της βασιλεύσει κατά βαρβάρων δωρούμενος, grant victories to kings against the barbarians. I mean, in English translation, we have smoothed that a little bit. Grant victories against the adversaries. The one says against the barbarians. But not only that, but Emperor Heraclius, while he was there, he thought of paying the Persians with the same, in the same way. So he sought to find what was most holy. According to their religion, they were Zoroastrianism, at that time the prevailing religion in Persia, and they had the so-called eternal fire. That was a source of oil coming from the earth, and it was burning, and that fire was the unquenched fire, and they had built a temple around that fire, and they were guarding it for centuries. So Heraclius thought that it would be fun to go and put out that fire, so he did. And there is a mention and a memory of that even in the salutations service. If you go to the second stanza, rejoice, O Redeemer, from the barbarian religion. Rejoice, you who drag us from the works of Maya. Rejoice, for the cult of fire you terminate. Rejoice, from the flame of passions you liberate. After that, the Byzantine Empire and Emperor Heraclius became, without competition, the greatest empire in the area. But alas, that didn't stay for long, because a new threat started to emerge, something that turned out to be like cancer in human history, and I'm talking about the spreading of Islam and the rise and spreading of Islam. But 1,400 years later, we stand here. We stand here, and it's not that we involve the salutations or our faith into politics. It has nothing to do with that. It is the people's belief, because emperor aside, patriarch aside, or Persian king aside, it's the people. And the people in Constantinople did not rely on Byzantine diplomacy, did not rely on the army or anything else. They relied on their mother, the Theotokos, the unshakable church, the unshakable power of the church. And may she always protect us and keep us. Χρόνια πολλά και καλό Πάσχα. We're getting there.